Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. We're diving into something truly magical today. We're going to be talking about the power and the beauty of presence. And this isn't just a concept, although for many of us it might feel like one. It's actually a way of being that really opens doors to freedom and to creativity. And it really opens doors to an inner power that many of us just haven't fully tapped into. So let's jump in. Let's talk about it. Becoming a co creator with the creator is your birthright. Together, we'll journey into your deepest authenticity. Because the more you align with who you truly are, the more effortlessly you call in the life that you desire and deserve. And most importantly, the more you step into your soul's highest purpose. Welcome to the Manifestation Method podcast, your number one source for Kabbalistic manifestation. Here we combine the ancient wisdom of Kabbalah, modern psychology, and quantum physics to help you achieve real, tangible manifestation results with my proven Abra method. I'm Ayelet Polonsky, and I'm here to guide you on your journey of manifesting a life that is aligned, expansive, and deeply connected to your highest self through the sacred energetic mechanics of Kabbalistic manifestation. To learn how to use Kabbalistic manifestation to transform your life from the inside out, go to ayeletpolonsky.com or download the Manifestation Method app. Let's open the gates of manifestation together.
Yeah, so Ayala, just break it down. What is presence?
Yeah, I guess that's a good place to start. What is presence? So I would say that presence it's often thought of as like just being in the moment. But there's really so much more to it than that. It's so much more than just being in the moment. And while that's true, true presence is transformative. It's really like a manifestation portal that can change your life if you learn to tap into the magic that's available in presence. Because presence really gives us, I'd say, access to a depth of clarity and freedom because it allows us to experience life as it is without filters or narratives or stories from the past, right? When we're fully present, we're actually not limited by old stories or fears that color our perspective and keep us playing small or keep us in a trauma loop, right? Instead, with presence, we're actually able to see clearly, to act freely, and to kind of feel an inner magic that can only happen when we're in the here and now. So, like in a nutshell, I would say that presence is really the quality of fully engaging in the current moment with an awareness that's free from any distraction, that's free from judgment, or that's free from thoughts about the past or the future. So it's the experience of being deeply attuned to what's happening right now within you and around you without getting lost in mental stories or wandering thoughts. Okay. So at its core, presence really can bring a sense of calm and clarity, and it can free us from the anxieties of the future or the guilt and shame from the past. So it's kind of like an unraveling of the past and the future, or kind of like a separation, a detachment from the past and the future. And when we're accessing what is right here, right now, it opens up a lot of freedom because it's really in the attachment to the past and the future where suffering exists. So being with presence is just being with what is, that it is, that it is. And from that place, suffering kind of just dissolves, right?
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And it also makes me think about right now, like we're in the Hebrew month of Cheshvan, which is supposed to be like a really, like that's like the the nickname for it is mal cheshvan, which is bitter cheshvan. But also, ironically, like the attribute of cheshvan is chesed, which is loving kindness. And it like just hearing you say that made me think about how presence is an activation of loving kindness, or it's like the literal key to go through the gate of loving kindness.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I would say that presence is a key that opens up the door to self-love and to joy, right? Because presence is an act of love. Self-love in its most nurturing form is presence with oneself, right? So when we're present with ourselves, that's when we're practicing true self-care. And self-care is a form of self-love. So it's in this state that we experience joy, that we experience a sense of freedom from fear, which is also an act of self-love. And fear will often creep in when we're not fully in the present moment, when we're in comparison or when we're worrying about what might be, which often brings anxiety, right? But in
Right.
presence, that fear fades and we feel empowered by the simplicity and the beauty of what is. So there really is a like this really is a key to self-love when we're able to access it. And there's a unique joy that comes from being fully present, right? Because
Yeah.
in these moments of true presence, we're not burdened by fear because we're not trying to control anything. We're simply being, okay? And we're not comparing
Wow.
or
Yeah.
analyzing, right?
Yeah, and
So
it's also like such like thinking about too when you're with a friend or a loved one, and like the main qualm sometimes can be like, oh, like they don't understand me, or feeling not seen or misunderstood can really be a like result of either someone not being present with us or of us not being present with them. So it's like first getting present with yourself is, I mean, that's all, like everything starts with the self and ripples outward, but it's like to be like a true person of chesed also, and like a true person of presence is to like give that presence to other people.
yeah, and also like that's like the shared space. When we're present with other people, then we're creating coherence. And there's a creative power in that. There's a vulnerability, there's an intimacy, there's a connection that gets cultivated when we're giving our full presence to another person. You know, it reminds me in my years when I was living in India, you know, my teacher would have us do a practice called authentic listening. And what we would have to do is sit across from a partner and they would share a story about themselves. And we would notice how, while listening to their story, how oftentimes when we're listening to another person, we're already thinking about the response that we want to give that person, which doesn't really give them our full presence because we're not giving them the luxury of being their full selves. We're already trying to control the situation by assuming what their experience should be, assuming how we should be responding. So, in this exercise, when we're sitting across from a partner, we're actually not allowed to respond at all. We are just in full presence. And it's an exercise of just noticing in oneself when I'm bouncing in and out of presence. Am I giving this person my full authentic listening? Because in that place, that there's power there. There's co-creation there, right? And presence is where our power resides. It's not in the controlling of what should I say in order to create connection, but in just being and feeling into the connection that happens naturally by
Yeah.
not trying to manipulate the conversation in any way. So it's really the power in presence is the ability to make things happen. And that ability is magnified when we're fully engaged with the moment, right? When we're present, we're not creating from wounds or from past traumas. We're just creating from a place of wholeness. And from that place of wholeness, anything is possible.
Like, so Ayelet, how do we cultivate presence in our daily life? What's the first step to creating this?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let's get a little practical. So, I mean, it's so funny because people are like, I need to work on being present. And it's actually kind of like the reverse. When we're actually present, there is no work, but it is a practice. Like cultivating presence is a practice. And so, in that sense, okay, maybe there is some work involved, but once you access it, it feels effortless. And so, one of the key ways to strengthen our presence is simply by aligning with our core values. Okay. And what I mean by this is, I'm not talking about values imposed on us by society or what others think we should value. I'm talking more about values that like deeply resonate with our own truth, right? What is true for me? And when we live by these inner values, we create a powerful foundation for presence because in doing so, we act in ways that feel like truly inspiring to us. So it's like anchoring ourselves in something real, what's real for us. And then every decision and action can then come from this place of authenticity, bringing us into deeper alignment with the presence. So I would say, there is an act of responsibility when it comes to presence. And I just think of something that my mentor taught me when I had a conversation with him about what is responsibility. And he says that responsibility is our ability to respond to the present moment.
Ooh.
It's the response ability, our ability to respond to the present moment rather than reacting automatically based on old patterns and conditioning, right? Because when we're truly present, then we can respond to the situation that presents itself in the moment in a way that feels authentic and aligned. And so from that, we're not operating from a place of fear or limitation, but rather we then operate from a place of strength and awareness. And this is where our true power lies. It lies in our capacity to engage fully and consciously with whatever arises in the moment. So something that I like to do, like a simple practice when I feel like I'm out of alignment or I'm not in presence or I'm being kind of like swayed by the waves of my external reality, is I simply tell myself, like, Ayelet, are you acting from your center? Are you acting from your center? Or are you living from your center in this moment? Right? And just simply asking myself that question, am I living from my center? What that kind of does is it brings me back to like my solar plexus, which is the area of the body, kind of like a chakra, so to speak, that exists between the belly button and our like breasts. And that area is our powerhouse. It is the place for creativity, for manifestation. It's kind of like what we call it the void. When we access the void, then we are in nothingness. And from a place of nothingness, we then become a blank canvas. And when we access within us this space that's just a blank canvas, then we can write whatever stories from the present moment that are aligned with our core values that we want to write. Now, I know that this is deep, and I invite you to kind of like rewind a minute and listen to that again because there's a lot of juice there. But even just the simple practice of, am I living from my center or am I being pulled by the waves of what's happening outside of me, is kind of just like a redirection that points the arrow back inward, that has us asking this important question, like, am I acting from my center right now? Then I can
Right, and
take
it's
it from
also
there.
good to know the energetic architecture that goes on, because so much of the time too we think like, okay, like having a practice, it's like, like doing yoga every single day, where it's something that like takes you outside of yourself and like learning the mechanics like of the body to like how to do a yoga or working out or something, but learning like the how our energetics work is really valuable, because you can also kind of visualize when you're in a place of like, ooh, like I'm about to react, or I'm getting caught in that loop of thinking about my response when I'm talking to somebody instead of actively listening to them, or facing any sort of activation like that. You can actually really calm down and like take a moment to be like, oh yeah, deep breath, my solar plexus, and ground down that way to create presence to come in, to allow it to come in.
Yeah, and this is a really good technique for letting go of old stories because, a manifestation principle that I always share is that the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves become our reality. And our stories are often anchored in the past. right? It's like we come into this world and a child is a blank canvas. They're not filled with language or speech. They don't have the capacity to create stories in the way that once we learn language, we're able to create meaning via words. And so, babies are really in a deep state of presence because they don't have this meaning making machine called language that creates meaning of things, which at a young age, we're often told what things mean. And our adults, our caretakers, tell us how to create meaning for ourselves. And so life becomes this like unraveling process of coming back to one's core values and asking oneself, well, what are the stories that I adopted? And what are the stories that are mine? And sometimes stories can just mean it's not even like a big like what life means or religion or culture or society, but more so like, oh, that boy that I had a crush on when I was 8 years old, he told me he didn't like me. And that created an internal narrative, a story that I told myself about myself, that I'm not lovable, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy of love. And as an adult, if we don't do the work at rewriting those stories in order to align with our true selves and what's actually sourced in truth, because is it true that because he didn't like me that I'm not worthy of love? No, of course not. So this whole story that I was carrying for years is based on a false foundation, on a premise of lies. And so I had to go in and rewrite those narratives for myself. And by doing that, I'm more easily able to access the present moment. Because something you just mentioned about like looping, right? If I'm still stuck in an old story, then I'm probably like looping that narrative over and over again in my head. And it is starting to like create the reality that I'm manifesting, and the types of men that I'm attracting and how those relationships then play out will be sourced in the story that I'm carrying, in the loop that is kind of going on repeat, in the background. And so, when it comes to presence, these stories have shaped how we see the world and how we react to it. And these stories can feel almost like armor, like protecting us from perceived dangers.
Right, or
But
like you can predict the future or predict the outcome because of this armor.
totally. But what we need to know about this armor and about these stories is that they're outdated. They no longer serve us in the present moment, right? So to cultivate presence, it really helps to reorganize these stories as just that, as stories. And if I'm the author and the producer and the main actress in my story, then I get to write whatever version of that story I want. And that's power. And I get to acknowledge that while these stories might have served a purpose in the past, they're not the truth of who I am now. So, a powerful question that we can ask ourselves when we're kind of caught up in a loop that's taking us out of the present moment could be, what do I need right now? Not what did I need then, but what do I need right now? Or what might I need someday, right? Is another story that we often like to ask ourselves, versus the empowering story is not what do I need someday, but what do I need in this exact moment? Because someday and what I need then does not exist in the present moment. The present moment is the question of what do I need right now and what do I need in this exact moment. And this question really draws us out of past narratives and into the immediacy of the present moment. So it's a way of realigning ourselves with what's true now and really letting go of what's no longer relevant.
Yeah, and it's also, yeah, it also makes me think about too, like what you talked about before about freedom. Like presence is it frees us, and there's also like so many misconceptions about what freedom is, or what freedom is in like our relationships, like thinking, okay, it's like doing whatever we want to do, like on our own time, etc. It really also turns that concept of freedom on its head to like a whole new, deeper level of what freedom actually means in our life and how to become free in our life.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think one thing that is important to understand about presence is you cannot be in both the past or the future and in presence simultaneously, right? And oftentimes when a person is trapped in the past, then they're met with feelings of shame and guilt, right? Thoughts of the past are usually met with shame and guilt, and thoughts of the future are usually met with feelings of fear and anxiety. Oh, what if I don't get there on time? What if I don't do the thing that I need to do? What if the thing I'm doing doesn't actually work out? All of that what if is not in the present moment, right? And anything that exists in the past, like show me where it is besides in the construct of your imagination, right? And imagination is a beautiful thing to be met with when you're present because that's manifestation. What you can imagine becomes your source of creation. And when you're present and you're not bringing the shame and guilt from the past or the stresses, the fears and anxieties of the future into the now, which you can't because they don't exist in the now. So if you're truly present, then you open up this place of freedom that actually has this like creative place where again you're accessing what's called the void, right? That place of nothingness. And that's where you can insert your visualization, your imaginative capacity, and what you can imagine you can create. So there's a lot of freedom found in presence.
Yeah, and also it's like these are such great key words too, like what you just said, like that are so applicable to even like let's say someone's going on a date with somebody and they've been on a couple dates or something and they're starting to get a little bit worried about like maybe what does this person think of me, like where is this going, etc. Like even just like having that kind of it's good to ask those questions obviously and have clarity, but it also is such a thing that can take you out of the dating experience or getting to know someone experience or calling in love experience, like asking what's going to happen next, looping like that.
It's so funny you bring this up because I was just having this like whole conversation with one of my close friends. She's the she's amazing. She's the executive director of Somatic Experiencing International. So we often have these like deep dives into like these abstract conversations that then somehow by the end of like an hour of talking to her like get grounded into something that actually makes sense because we were talking about judgment, like when we're judging ourselves or when we're judging someone else. And when we're in that state of judgment, we're not in presence, right? Judgment and presence cannot coexist. Because when I'm judging something that happened already or something that I fear might happen in the future. But like if I'm just in the moment with someone, then the actual state that becomes available is actually a state of discernment. So she asked me, she's like, what's the difference between discernment and judgment? And how do we know the difference? And what came up for me was, discernment is born of presence. If I'm in the moment and I'm fully present with myself, then I can discern, okay, maybe there's a judgment there, but it doesn't have to debilitate me or keep me stuck, right? The judgment can then be sort of kind of like a constructive criticism where I use this act of discernment that is born of presence to discern, okay, now what do I want to do with this judgment? Like I'm aware that it's there. Now, what do I want to do with this? And then that's a good kind of judgment because it actually initiates some sort of action and change for the individual. So I think discernment is something we want to play with, but we want to be careful of getting caught up in the loop of judgment because when we're in the loop of judgment, we're not in presence.
And also too, I think like judgment, it comes from a lot of preconceived notions of like what we think's gonna happen. Like going back to like you can't live in the past, the present, and the future at the same time. And so like whether you're feeling, maybe for our audience, like if you're going on a date or something like that and you feel this guilt or shame about something that happened in the past, and it's being projected onto a date or someone that you're dating, or you're really worried that it's going to happen again in the future and you're projecting that into the dating scenario, like even just catching yourself and being like, okay, like I want to discern and have a loving relationship, but like also to like discernment, like what you said, is born of presence. Like it reveals itself the more present you are versus coming in with a preconceived notion and then projecting that onto a person or a situation.
So I love that because I find that true presence is a beautiful dance between will and compassion. Okay, so like stay with me here, okay? And I need to catch my own thoughts because I'm like on a I'm on a stream.
Yeah. She's channeling, y'all.
So like this dance between will and compassion, I find that that's that's presence, right? Like will being our focused intention or intense intention, right? That's our will. It's intense
Hmm.
intention, or at least that's how I kind of like learned about will when I was in India. It's like intense intention, right? That's willpower. It's like I need to conjure up all of my resources right now to like bring myself to the present moment. So that's focused intention
Hmm.
versus kind of letting all of the like modern day distractions like pull me from one direction to another, which can also easily happen.
Hmm.
So there is this act of like intense intention or focused intention, and that's will. And it's our capacity to choose where we place our attention and energy. So there's choice there. Like our will, we bring our will into it, and there's choice there. Where am I choosing to place my attention and my energy? But then because like intense intention can sound kind of like very masculine or kind of like forceful. So compassion, it's like presence is this dance of like masculine and presence. That's just coming to me now.
Masculine and feminine.
What did I say?
Presence.
Okay, masculine and feminine. Thank you.
Yeah,
See,
yeah, yeah.
I'm like so just
Yeah,
in
yeah,
that,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. Not enough time. We can't gotta leave her out of
Right?
it.
So like the feminine dances with the masculine here because like our willpower can be the masculine, but then compassion softens that will. It allows us to meet ourselves and to meet others with understanding and with kindness. And when we bring our attention and intention together with an open heart, with a compassionate heart, then we create this like powerful merging of two forces, right? So presence then is not just a state of awareness, but it's an active engagement with life. And it's one that
Hmm.
holds both focus and softness simultaneously. I love that.
So good. So good. It's also like makes me think about how it actually cultivates like a real beautiful attribute of patience, like being patient with other people, being patient with yourself. You know, sometimes we think like we have to be at this level and we're only at this level, but it's like really being even reminding like we can be compassionate with a very strong intention. Like it kind of creates this like patience bubble that like puts you through the presence portal and actually like shoots you farther than you would be just trying to force something.
Yeah, yeah, it's a really beautiful way to create authentic connection with people. Like I know for me in my own marriage, like when something feels off, it's because we're not activating our will with compassion to access presence. It's when we're both so like busy in the busyness of modern life that we're giving up our power in a way, all right, and not coming back to that place where like two souls get to meet and dance. And like that is like the juiciness of life when two people come together with full presence. I mean, for me, that is my core value. Like presence is a core value. It's the way that I create the deepest friendships, the deepest sisterhoods, right? The deepest like relationships with my family members because it takes judgment out. It takes all like the fears and anxieties and the stories out of the picture, and it just allows two souls to be fully honoring of themselves as individuals, of the other as individuals, and it allows for just what is to be. And then there's no resistance to what is, because it's in the resistance of what is that suffering gets created. What is. If it's going to rain on your wedding day, you can choose to suffer or not, but that's a choice. It's really a choice, and it's raining anyways. And you booked the venue
Yeah.
months or years in advance. So you might as well learn to dance in the rain and be present with the rain in a whole new way, so that you're not suffering on your wedding day, as a metaphor. But like really, the suffering comes when we're in resistance to what is, because what is. And sometimes we can change what is, but that should also be done from a place of presence, like that discernment that we were talking about, right? Because otherwise it's just resistance, and that's suffering, and nobody wants to suffer. So why not just like accept what is
And have a good time.
and have a great time and have a
It's
great
also like too like I think so much there's so much rhetoric around presence is extremely passive. like just be in the moment. Like it can really sound like what I have to just like come to a full halt. Like that's how that statement feels, at least to me. But what I love about talking about presence in this conversation is like it really is a creative force.
That's why we're talking manifestation, baby. And
Yeah.
I feel my field is way open right now. I just got back from a 4-day retreat. So like on the third day of the retreat, like I accessed this deep place of presence in myself, and it was this space of non-doing, which felt so counterproductive to like my nature, which is like I'm at a retreat, I have to be there and do all this inner work, and I have to do all this like deep excavation. But by the last day of the retreat, like I entered presence. And it was just like, oh, so this is what it feels like to feel good, to realize that we actually don't have to do all the work. Oftentimes, it's less work to get us to the place we're trying to get to. And, yeah, okay, like it's this funny paradoxical game we're playing as human beings where, like, we have to do all the inner work to get to that place of presence. But really, like, the presence is there the whole time, readily available. And if we realize like, okay, we can just like soften the edges, we don't have to work so hard, we can literally just be, and that is so yummy and juicy, then like we open up to all of the magic that life has available for us.
So good, Ayala. Will you wrap this up with a bow and bless it?
Yeah, okay. So, a blessing for you all. May you be deeply rooted in this moment, fully open to the beauty and truth that it holds. May each breath draw you closer to your own wisdom, and may each heartbeat remind you of your inherent worth. May you release the need to dwell in what has been or worry over what might come, knowing that you truly have all the ingredients that you need right here, right now, and in this sacred presence. May you find peace, clarity, and renewed connection to your own inner light. And may this bring you strength, and may it remind you that you are whole always. Blessings. If you enjoyed this episode, let's keep the conversation going inside the Manifestation Method Portal app, your #1 destination for Kabbalistic manifestation. Inside, you'll unlock the secrets of manifestation through my proven Abra method, rooted in Kabbalah, psychology, and quantum physics, designed to help you manifest real, tangible results from the inside out. Join our global community of manifestors, explore our signature courses, monthly live manifestation workshops with me, Ayelet, and access our transformational hypno activations and attunements to rewire limiting beliefs and align with your soul's purpose. The app is available now on the Apple App Store and Google Play. To sign up, head over to ayeletpolonsky.com. Becoming a co-creator with the Creator is your birthright. Let's manifest the life you desire and deserve together.